Hi everyone, in this video we'll be learning in the earlier cities class 6 history. This is Viswetsa. The first topic of this lesson is the story of Harappa. Harappa. Harappa was one of the oldest cities in the Indian subcontinent, which archaeologists found in 1921 on the banks of River Ravi, one of the tributaries of Indus River. This was the first city to be discovered. All other cities were buildings just similar to Harappa were found, were described as Harappan. The Harappan civilization was also known as Bronze Age civilization as because of its discovery from tin and copper. The mixture of tin and copper is known as bronze. In this civilization, the utilization of bronze has been seen. Now, what was special about the Harappan cities? These cities were divided into two or more parts. Citadel, one of it is citadel. The part of the west which was smaller but higher called citadel and lower town. The part of the east was larger but lower was known as lower town. The walls of baked brick were built around each part. The bricks were so well baked that they have lasted for thousands of years. The bricks were laid in an interlocking pattern and that made the walls strong. In some cities, special buildings were constructed on the citadel. For example, in Mohenjo-daro, a very special tank, which archaeologists call the Great Bath, was built in this era. Remember, some cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Lothal had elaborate storehouses. Next, the houses, drains, and streets of Harappa. Most houses had a separate bathing area and some had wells to supply water. Many cities had covered drains. Each drain had a gentle slope so that water could flow through it. Drains in houses were connected to streets and smaller drains which ultimately led into bigger ones. All three, that is, houses, drains, and streets, were planned and built at the same time. Now, life in the city of Harappa. Harappa city was a very busy place. Rulers were the people who planned the construction of special buildings in the city. Rulers sent people to distant land to get metal, precious stones, and other things that they wanted. Scribes were the people who knew how to write and help in preparing the seals and perhaps write on the materials that have not survived. There were men and women, craftspersons, who used to make all kinds of things. Many terracotta toys have been found in Harappan cities. which shows that children must have played with this. New crafts in the city. Here in the picture you can see most of the objects that were made and found in Harappan cities were of stone, shell and metal, including copper, bronze, gold and silver. Copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments and vessels. Gold and silver were used to make ornaments and vessels. The Harappans made shields out of stone which were rectangular in shape and have an animal carved on them. The Harappans also made pots with beautiful black designs. Actual pieces of cloth were found attached to the lid of a silver vase and some copper objects at Mohenjo-daro. Archaeologists have also found spindle wheels made of terracotta and fins which were used to spin thread. Many of the things that were produced at Harappan were probably the work of specialists. In search of raw materials. Raw materials are substances that are either found naturally or produced by farmers or herders. Raw materials are processed to produce finished goods. The raw materials that the Harappans used were available locally, whereas many such items like copper, tin, gold, silver, and precious stones were brought from distant places. The Harappans probably got copper from present day Rajasthan and from Oman in West Asia. Tin, which was mixed with copper to produce bronze, had been brought from present day Afghanistan and Iran. Gold has been brought from present day Karnataka and precious stones from present day Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. Food for people in the cities. People living in the countryside grew crops and reared animals. The Harappans grew wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed, and mustard. The plough was used to dig the earth to turning the soil and planting seeds. Water was stored and supplied to the fields when the plants was growing. Harappans reared cattle, sheep, goat, buffalo. In the dry summer months, large herds of animals were probably taken to greater distance in search of grass and water. People also collected fruits like burr, caught fish, and hunted wild animals like the antelope. Here you can see the region of Harappan civilization and the Lothal, the important place. A closer look to Harappan towns in Gujarat. The city of Dholavira, you can see, was located on Khadir Bed in the run of Kutch. Here, This city has fresh water and fertile soil. Dholavira was divided into three parts, and each part was surrounded by massive stone walls with entrance through gateways. There was also a large open area in the settlement where public ceremonies led. Large letter or Harappan script was carved out of white stone and inlaid in wood. The city of Lothal stood beside a tributary of the Sabarmati in Gujarat, close to the Gulf of Khambat. The raw materials such as semi-precious stones were easily available in the city. There was also a storehouse in the city, workshop for making beads, pieces of stone, half-made beads, tools for bead making, and finished beads have all been found here. The mystery of the end of the Harappan civilization. Around 4,000 years ago, we find the beginning of a major change. People stopped living in many of the cities. Writing silks and weights were no longer used. Raw materials brought from long distances became rare. In Mohenjo-daro, we found that garbage piled up on the streets. The drainage system broke down and new, less impressive houses were built, even over the streets. Why did all this happen? We are not sure. Some scholars suggest that the river dried up. Others suggested that there was deforestation. In some areas, there were floods, but none of these reasons can explain the end of all the cities. It appears that if the rulers lost control, sites in Sindh and West Punjab, present-day Pakistan, were abandoned, while many people moved into newer, smaller settlements to the east and the south. Thank you for watching the video.